We've got a little gap in between games for the Suns in the preseason, so I figure it's a good time to talk about who the fifth starter for this team is going to be on day one, but also maybe down the line in the playoffs, who's going to be that fifth starter and maybe even who's going to be in that playoff rotation. Everything is pretty much up for grabs at the moment, and anyone could prove their spot in the rotation, so let's just talk about all the names that could get it done. And starting it off, I think it's going to be the guy who's most likely going to start game one is going to be Josh Okogie. We saw him start game one of the preseason, and Frank Vogel seemed to be very pleased with his performance. And I mean, Josh Okogie's got a good case to make it. He's a really great defender, and you know, I mean, the arguments I've been seeing online, and I have to agree with, is that when Josh Okogie was starting for this roster back, you know, at the end of the season, we were starting to wonder if Josh Okogie was going to be out of our price range. That's how good he was as a starter, despite the fact that he was, you know, still missing threes, and he did have like an uncharacteristically good three-point shooting stretch. He's still, you know, a below average three-point shooter from the corners, from pretty much anywhere on the floor, and despite the three-point shooting, he makes up with it with some really great defense and rebounding, and he's a pretty solid passer, and he does a lot of the things you need to do to be successful in the Suns starting lineup, in particular setting screens, being able to work off the ball, cutting well, and, you know, hitting cutters. That's gonna be one of the primary means of the Suns, you know, creating offense when you have Jusuf Nurkic, a guy who can set really hard screens and can pass up from up top on the key. He's always looking for cutters. You have also three insanely great offensive weapons who love cutting and love, you know, looking for jump shots, love running off screens and running pick and roll, running double drag screens where Jo might be the first screener, with Jusuf Nurkic being the second screener. I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities for Josh Okogie to be successful in the starting lineup, and he doesn't necessarily need to be the most knockdown shooter, but I think inevitably the Suns will be looking for some more three-point shooting in the starting lineup, because three-point shooting is, you know, an absolute necessity. We saw the Suns pretty much falter against the Nuggets because no one on the roster could shoot a three other than Devin Booker. I mean, you're talking about a team that shot under 30% from three in the corners against that series against the Nuggets, and the Nuggets basically just let the Suns shoot every shot from the corner because there was no point in guarding it. A 30% shot is not worth guarding, and the Suns, I mean, they need to put in the players who are gonna, you know, make those shots. And the first guy who's going to knock down those shots, you know, if you're looking at three-point percentage, is Yuta Watanabe. I mean, this dude, you know, was, you know, one of the like top, maybe number one, maybe like top three in three-point corner percentage, or corner three-point percentage. And I mean, he's a bigger defender at like 6'8", I believe. And I mean, Yuta Watanabe just seems to be improving every single year. A guy who's already played with Kevin Durant and seems to have pretty good chemistry with the rest of the Suns starting group. He's starting to show a bit more on the ball scoring as well. It's just been very interesting to see, like just putting the ball on the floor, taking one or two dribbles, hitting the pull-up jump shot. That type of ability to, well, we haven't seen him like attack. I mean, yeah, okay, we have seen him attacking closeouts, because if you see in highlights of Yuta Watanabe dunking the ball, it's probably him attacking a closeout. He can get into the lane and finish inside. You know, we've seen a couple of posters from him, but he can also shoot the mid-range, as he's demonstrated a couple of times during our preseason games so far. And yeah, I mean, he's been knocking down that three. Yuta Watanabe, I mean, that's probably one of the bigger defenders we're considering for the starting lineup. Could easily be the playoff starter. I mean, I think Josh Okogie's three-point shooting is gonna make him a regular season starter, but not quite a playoff starter. When you look at Yuta Watanabe, he is just, you know, just kind of this perfect fit with the starting lineup as long as everything goes well. I mean, I really hope and pray for the health of this team, but I know it's inevitable that people will be injured. And I'm actually going to talk a lot about how injuries might affect these players' minutes. Josh Okogie is a guy who could easily be put into the starting lineup, but Yuta Watanabe, I mean, if we're looking at an injury to the starting lineup, I mean, if KD is ever resting games or is dealing with a long-term injury, Yuta Watanabe is likely the guy slotting into a spot as a guy who you're going to use as a primary offensive weapon, maybe not as much on the ball, but off the ball, you're going to use him in very similar ways to what you want to do with Kevin Durant. And shooting the threes, cutting, attacking closeouts, that sort of thing. Yuta Watanabe is going to be able to fill in and do a lot of the things KD will be able to do in those off-ball sets that, yeah, the Suns are going to run because they have, you know, Devin Booker and Bradley Beal handling the ball. Yuta's just going to have to learn how to play those KD spot minute set, whether he's coming off the bench replacing KD or in the starting lineup in place of KD or in the starting lineup with KD. I think there's a lot of chance for Yuta Watanabe to be successful. But that's not the end of the three-point shooting for the Suns. Grayson Allen is also one of the highest caliber corner three-point shooters in the league. And he's right up there with Yuta Watanabe. And yeah, I mean, Grayson Allen, he's probably not as good as a defender as Yuta Watanabe. It's a little bit weird to say that, but Grayson Allen, what he does have going for him is he is able to attack closeouts just like Yuta Watanabe. He's been really strong as a finisher in the interior, and he's able to work a little bit more as a ball handler. And although he's a little bit shorter, I believe he's 6'4", he can knock down the three, not just from the corners, but from the hash marks, which is very important. Another thing that the Nuggets really did, other than just leaving the weak side corner shooters wide open on those pick and roll defenses, is that they also helped hard to the nail on those pick and roll defenses. And you can't really do that if you have a guy like Grayson Allen or let's say Eric Gordon. I'm not really going to consider Eric Gordon for a starting spot in this video, but if you have a guy like Eric Gordon or, you know, I mean, maybe Yuta Watanabe will get a little bit better, but mainly Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon, who are really good at hitting from that spot, the hash mark on the court, and just pulling defenders off of the elbow. We already saw Eric Gordon in our most recent game actually hit one from out there. It's a really nice, like, he just caught it, immediately went up into a shot from the hash. It was such a great shot, and it really showed, first of all, the importance of being able to draw the defender off of that spot, helping on the nail, and also just having a dude who can knock down that shot when it's open just looks really good. And Grayson Allen can do it. He's easily proved it with all this time with the Bucks. It's another thing that, you know, teams like to do to stop the Bucks, walling up against Giannis Antetokounmpo's drives to the center. And Grayson Allen had that hash mark three wide open all the time, and he was knocking them down. So expect to see Grayson Allen hit those threes, drive onto the lane, make some tough finishes. He's a pretty scrappy rebounder as well. So yeah, he's going to get in there, he's going to battle for boards, and maybe he's not the best defender, but he's going to give a lot of effort on that end. And in a Frank Vogel system, I think he's going to, you know, thrive just by giving effort. And Grayson Allen, I mean, that's a guy who can, I think, any injury to starting lineup, not named Jusuf Nurkic, you're probably putting in Grayson Allen right away. Yeah, any of those four guys, Grayson Allen's probably your first consideration because, yeah, you can knock down the three, and I can guarantee Grayson Allen is going to start a lot of games this season, probably 20 plus in the regular season, you know, health permitting for Grayson Allen, and he's probably going to start a few games in the playoffs as well. So expect to see a lot of Grayson Allen in the starting lineup. I don't think he's the priority. I think Yuta Watanabe has a lot better chance of starting in the playoffs, but, you know, any injuries, Grayson Allen is probably the first one that the Suns call. And Eric Gordon, as much as I am kind of writing him off as a starter, he did start against the Blazers with Bradley Beal out, and actually Nasir Little started with Josh Okogie out, which is interesting considering I don't think Nasir Little has done anything all that notable to be worth in the starting lineup. I have a few other names I would have put into the starting lineup before him, but maybe it's kind of like a prove it thing. Maybe the Suns are looking at trading him, just want to see how good he is by giving him more minutes. I'm not really sure. He played 30 minutes against the Blazers and had 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. That's not exactly a revenge game, but he was a plus 25, and he did play a lot with the starters, so that's a good look for him. But Eric Gordon, as I said, can knock down a three. He can attack closeouts. He's basically your best, you know, replacement guard off of the bench for Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. So I expect him to be on the bench primarily because, yeah, I think you would, if you have Beal or Booker out, you're going to prefer staggering, you know, the minutes of a starter and a bench player compared to having two starters. Like, you're staggering the minutes of Booker and Gordon out of the starters as a little bit more questionable to me. I think they're just going to prefer running Gordon off the bench unit as a replacement for either Booker or Beal, whichever one is healthy out of the two. And yeah, I don't really see him being a starter, but it is an interesting look that the Suns can go to. He's a solid enough defender, can knock down the three, obviously from the hash marks and from the corners, and can drive into the drive it to the rim. He just had 20 on 10 shots against the Blazers, and yeah, he's still like that. It's Eric Gordon, you know. But Nasir Little, a dude who did start for the Suns, I mean, I'm very questionable on this. He has not looked great in the preseason, and he's got a lot to prove defensively, offensively. He's got to knock down the three. He's got to be able to attack closeouts. He's got to be a good passer. I think he had 2 turnovers to his 2 assists in the game, or no turnovers. Sorry, I take that back. I'm sorry, Nasir Little, but he's got to be a pretty good playmaker. He's got to make the right passes to be in the starting lineup. And yeah, I mean, I definitely trust Yuta Watanabe and Grayson Allen a little bit more as a passer. And Nasir Little doesn't have a hard edge over them as a defender. So it's pretty questionable for me as with Nasir Little's fit in the starting lineup, but he might get a few more starts this year. Looking at some other guys, I think we're definitely going to see Drew Eubanks start a couple of games this season. I mean, Yusuf Nurkic has played like under 55 games for the last 4 years of his career, so expect to see a lot of Drew Eubanks starting. And yeah, I mean, he's been good, pretty good as a starter. You know, he looked really good with the Blazers as a rim protector, and I think he's going to look even better when you consider, you know, the immense offensive talent that the Suns possess. Just being a rim runner, just rolling hard, and playing some great defense in the drop coverage, and trying out different coverages. He's a little bit more mobile than Yusuf Nurkic, and is going to be a better weapon for Frank Vogel to utilize. There's even a possibility in the playoffs that he ends up being a starter over Yusuf Nurkic. Definitely time will tell on that one, but I think his defensive edge might give him the starting spot for the Suns. Kind of like if you look at the Clippers, what they did with Ivica Zubac and Miles Plumlee. Actually, they're both still or Mason Plumlee. They're both still on the roster. They're starting Zubac. Obviously, he's a lot better than Plumlee, but I think it could be interesting if you're looking for a more defensive-focused look instead of the offensive juggernaut of Yusuf Nurkic in there to instead start Drew Eubanks. Looking at some other fifth starter possibilities, though, I think it comes down to the last 3 players that I kind of haven't mentioned in this situation. The last 3 like wing type players: Keita Bates-Diop, Chimezie Metu, and Jordan Goodwin. Jordan Goodwin is another guard replacement type that I think he has a little bit better of a chance of starting over Eric Gordon because he's more of a true point guard type guy. He's not, you know, the most true point guard. He's obviously no Chris Paul, but he's a pretty willing passer and a very good defender. He's providing like a lot of hustle there. He's creating a lot of deflections in the one game he played against the Blazers. He's just getting his hands in on everything, and Jordan Goodwin looked really good. Like, I mean, like that one preseason game just looked amazing. He's the guy who's impressed me the most through preseason. Considering I watched, you know, I watched FIBA. I watched the FIBA World Cup with Chimezie Metu and Yuta Watanabe, so I'm not as impressed by their improvements, considering Jordan Goodwin's a guy who's just been a little bit injured, didn't play in the World Cup, and now is, you know, coming into the preseason looking very, very good. So it's just really good to see him playing like this, and gives me a lot of faith in him for being a very, at least, useful rotation player, and very potentially, like, he has a very good chance of being a playoff rotation player because he just looks that good. Like, he seems like he's a very, very useful player for the Suns as a defender, as a passer, and just a connector for your scoring, you know, talents. Having Jordan Goodwin out there just seems like a great idea, you know, as your backup guard. He's definitely going to be considered for the rotation, and yeah, we'll see how it goes down the stretch of the season, where he ends up, but I have a lot of hope for Jordan Goodwin. But let's just talk about the last 2 guys who are most considered for that starting 5 spot, or the 5th spot in the starting lineup, whether it's at small forward or power forward. Keita Bates-Diop, I think, has been a little bit underwhelming. He's a guy who can really knock down the 3 from the right corner, but he keeps shooting them from the left corner and missing them. I'm pretty sure he has not made a 3 from the left corner during this preseason, and I think he's made a couple from the right corner. That type of like specific corner usability is a little bit questionable to me. He's a little bit more similar to, I believe, Grayson Allen, or actually Eric Gordon has the hottest hot spot in that right corner. And then you got Keita Bates-Diop up there with Grayson Allen as a primary right corner 3-point shooter, which is interesting because Yuta Watanabe is primarily in that left corner. So it'll be interesting to see if Keita Bates-Diop could ever, you know, figure out that left corner 3 If he doesn't, it's a little bit tough that you just have to always stick him in that right corner, and he's not been stepping up as big of as big of a defender as we were hoping he would be. So he's got some time to figure it out as a defender, as a shooter, attacking off the closeouts. He's always shown an ability to pass the ball at least decently well since his time in college. And yeah, I mean, he is a very prototypical type of connector you would want in the starting lineup, and a lot of people projected him to be a fifth starter, but he's got a long ways to go compared to the other guys I've mentioned, and the final guy I'm going to mention, to actually end up being a starter. And yeah, he hasn't been like a preference in those rotation minutes for Frank Vogel yet. So yeah, that's the guy who's got a lot to prove to show that he's actually going to be a starter. But finally, Chimezie Metu is one of the most interesting guys to me because he played really darn well with Nigeria, really knocking down threes in, Euro, or not Euro, what is it called? FIBA World Cup play. He's even like coming off the screens. We saw one of those actions actually in, I believe, the second preseason game, where you just see Chimezie Metu coming up off the screen to shoot the three. Considering this is a guy who's not shot impressively well from three, I believe it's 35 or 36% in their most recent season off the top of my head. He's definitely an improving three-point shooter. I think he might be a left corner preference three-point shooter, which is very good for the Suns because, as I said, they have three out of their 5 primary non-scorers shooting in that, preferring shooting in that right corner compared to Yuta, who prefers the left corner, and Chimezie Metu, who now seems like he's going to be a shooter and a key piece of the rotation, can be a left corner shooter. That's got a lot of, we need a lot of data to prove that, but he's a guy who loves shooting also in that kind of break sort of area, the hash marks, and yeah, he can stretch it out from there. He's a really, interesting, versatile defender at like 6'9". He can be a good interior force as a defender, but also can keep up with guards and wings on the perimeter. So he can play that power forward / center role. And Chimezie Metu, with Ayton gone, now makes a lot more sense in this roster, especially if he's knocking down that three-point shot. He seems like he would be an amazing pickup for the Suns team. And yeah, I've also got high hopes for Metu. Seems like a guy who's easily going to be in the playoff rotation. And yeah, knocking down that three just makes him amazing. Like, that's like an easy rotation player. Honestly, just looking at this video and just like talking about all these guys, it is impressive the amount of talent the Suns have assembled, considering I think a lot of them are going to get paid as soon as they're off of these minimum type deals. Because, I mean, man, like, they have a really good shot at looking really good. Playing three, shooting the three, playing defense, they can get paid next season just by having a great year of the Suns and playing well off of our stars. And yeah, I've got, pretty high hopes from this team. I'm going to go into those high hopes in a later video, maybe a championship hopes type video. But for now, I think that about covers it on my thoughts on the fifth starter. My final predictions, Josh Okogie ends up being a starter, going into the season, and come playoff time, it's just really hard to predict in terms of who's going to be the best, and is the team even going to be healthy? I don't know. Like, are we even going to have these other 4 starters out here playing minutes for us? I mean, I hope we do, but yeah, if I had to say a fifth starter, it's probably Yuta Watanabe, but a lot of players have a lot of chances to step into that starting role and really prove themselves as, great NBA players, especially in, a great NBA role, kind of like what Bruce Brown did with the Nets. Then he went to the Nuggets, played extremely well during the playoffs, and then got paid. So yeah, let's see if any of those players can try to take one of those Bruce Brown type leaps up in this upcoming season. Actually, it feels like there might be multiple of them who might. Anyways, that's about it. If you haven't subscribed already, maybe scroll down and hit that button. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you probably want to see more, so go just hit the button. Why don't you? Anyways, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.